Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you read me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Whoops, can you read me? Okay, I need to mute that. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Whoops, can you read me? Let's see. Okay, I need to. Okay, does it sound all right now? I think the echo was from YouTube. I just muted YouTube, so that's what I think that must be what the echo was. So, yeah. There's like I've noticed there are big screaming lags when I'm chatting to. It seems to take a while for people to. In worst case scenario, it can be 20-minute lags, but that was on my old computer. It was absolute kind of raw, as you know. Oh, good. Oh, good. I actually sort of exist. Cool. Okay. So this parody is something I came up with when about a couple of decades ago in the Tolkien news groups. If anyone is aware of what news groups even are, because they were already a little old-fashioned by then, but they were still very active. God only knows if they even exist now. And there was this a huge big parody project of Lord of the Rings that a whole bunch of people were involved in. So a lot of people wrote chapters for it. The idea originally being that it would be an e-text to send, like, some students, they don't want to do the work. They just say, hey, can you give me all the answers? Can you just, kind of thing. So they were like, okay, let's send them to this e-text, which is actually totally fake. So that's how it started, and then it kind of turned into a monster. So, and this was kind of this isn't part of that, but it's kind of connected to that. So it's Sauron's diary. There may be a few obscure references in it, but it should still be amusing. So let's get started here. Sauron's diary. Here's the the preface. The field of third age studies is still in its infancy. The opus of J.R.R. Tolkien retarded rather than initiated its development, both through its uncritically pro-Elvish, pro-Dunedain, anti-Sauron bias, tinged with anti-orc racism, and through Tolkien's rather cavalier view of precisely what constitutes translation. Finally, under the auspices of O. Sharp, Stuart Jensen, and Oyvind Long, a methodically valid, scholarly translation of the Red Book of Westmarch is underway, giving us a more accurate picture of the history and social mores of the Third Age than was formerly believed possible, and receiving as a reward for their labors abuse and obloquy at the hands of the self-appointed guardians of Tolkien's lies masquerading as the truth. In the meantime, newly discovered documents are revolutionizing the field. Ravens and Morgul's researchers, for example, have made it clear that Arwen's role in events consisted in far more than sewing a banner like some half-elvish Betsy Ross. William S. Shue's monographs on the history of the quote royal end quote houses of Arnor, registered trademark, and Gondor, trademark, and on the Valinorian educational system have punctured more than one fabrication. Above all, Stephen Thurston first hinted at Sauron's true historical significance in an essay, Sauron, Misunderstood Visionary of the Third Age, which, if somewhat outdated, forms nevertheless a necessary foundation for Mordor studies, a branch of knowledge to which I offer here my modest contributions. I have no intention whatsoever of explaining either how these documents came into my hands, or indeed how C.S. Lewis stole that line from me. Certainly my grant from the Sauron Foundation had nothing to do with it. Suffice it to say that it was a long and arduous process in which I chased down fragments of Sauron's diary as palimpsests in milk cartons, restaurant menus, and articles of lingerie, no comment, and then collected these fragments, laboriously constructing a schemacodicum such as would have induced a cardiac arrest even in the great Lachman. But enough of this blathering, let's get on with it. Signed, Manel Vagor the Innovator, Grand Baritone Extraordinaire. So let me half a second. I'm getting some water. September 21st, 3018. You know, the trouble with being immortal is that I get all my ancient love affairs mixed up. What brought this to mind was the news that my Nazgul are in the vicinity of Tom Bombadil. I think. I was never good at geography, Melkor knows, and I can't recall if the woman he stole from me was Golberry or Yuana. My, I had some torrid affairs in those days. Why, Tom Bombadil and I used to be best buddies. We used to go to the Limpe bars together every Friday night. I even gave him voice lessons. Not that it did any good. When I conquer the world, the ungrateful wretch will pay for having robbed me of my girl. September 22nd. That ingrate Sauron, or Araman, or whatever, just blamed me. He denies that Balrogs have wings. I was going to send a pretty sharp reply. I mean, I think I know a bit more about Balrogs, but thought better of it. As the great Orcish poet Gorbush so aptly put it, gallivanting in Thangarodrim, dragons need mouthwash, you know. I gave a collection of Gorbush's poems to the Witch King as a birthday present. He didn't seem too pleased. September 23rd. Oh, sweet Melkor. Sweet Melkor. I never had a night like that in my life. Didn't even need the ring, and a lot of good those elf rings did Celeburbon. Nya, nya, nya. Shelob. She knows how to love me, yes indeed. Woga, my cat, I call her, though she owns me not. Last child of Ungoliant to bless the world, how firmly thou hast taught me in thy web. You know, you really are my kind of girl. Even better than Trolopiel, the celeb. If any hobbit used the seducing ring to get some action on my bosomed bed, 'twould fill me with a rage that ill would bring upon thy beauteous, long dark-haired head. But nay, such allotted thoughts I cast aside, nor doubt I of thy pure arachnid heart. For ere unfurled with thee, truest bride, be I, nor ever from thy cobweb part. For though to all the world I master be, yet all my power availeth not sans thee. Pardon me. September 24th. Wonder if the Nasdaq or Nazgul have found the Mire or Shire or whatever it's called yet. Sheesh. You'd think being vice regent of Melkor I'd have some decent atlases, but no. Last I heard, the Nasdaq were starting a singing group. September 25th. I feel somewhat marginalized using this elf and Dunedain-centric calendar. When the war's over, I'll have to devise my own. Those elves think they're big stuff, but their seduction rings didn't do them much good, did they? Except, of course, for Galadriel. But I doubt she really needed it. But Celeborn didn't get much good out of his ring. Got ditched for Celeborn. What are you even talking about here? Ouch. Let's see. Okay, what time is it now? Okay, we got plenty of time. September 26th, 3018. Singing group or not, I'm fairly pleased with the NASDAQ. Even the cross-dresser, even though that's not my cup of tea. But who knew that when I was doling out the rings? Out of the millions of mortals, well, thousands anyway, demographic statistics hadn't advanced very far. I had to make some selection. So, in my mercy, I chose those with whom no woman would ever be caught dead otherwise. What I don't understand is why Frodo and company are apparently in such fear of me. What's not to like about getting an estate in Mordor? Still, as I wrote back at the beginning of the Second Age, the economy of being is simply the unbecoming of unbeing, rather like Elbereth's perfume that wafts into the allergenicity. Il s'agit d'une mise en abîme du néant des lettres, says Niana. Perhaps. But rather than the great Kahuna, whatever. Yeah, some of this is obscure, sorry. Aule panned that book, as I recall. I deeply resented that. And when I deeply resent something, ... Okay, September 29th. Well, the NASDAQ sure know how to have a good time, even in Bree, which according to their report, is a rather bad imitation of Minas Vegas, the Sin City of southern Mordor. You can take the NASDAQ out of the mortals, but you can't take the mortal out of the NASDAQ. This Aragorn chap sounds like a rather sad apology for an errand of Isildur. He doesn't even have mouse ears. Melkor, when I think of that Isildur, I get so resentful. Cutting off my finger and using the ring to seduce my flame du jour. Ever since then, I've had to wear these ridiculous white gloves. But I had the last laugh when they begat Anarchaon, the cranky waterfowl, and things went downhill from there. So I was almost sorry for Eisner. ... Okay. Okay, you can skip this bit. Move on to September 30th. September 30th. I think it was through hanging out too much with Nienna that my brother Sorcha went to the bad. Modern literature is an appalling mess. Modern architecture, too. That horrible stuff they have in the Magic Kingdom. Well, I have a new project. Teaching orcs how to appreciate classical music. I think I'll check alt.meyer.valarauka for the latest gossip. Okay. Let me skip over to October 3rd. October 3rd, 3018. Well, Gandalf just can't stay out of trouble, can he? Interfering with my NASDAQ's missions. What's that all about? He and Saruman keep making this big thing about being emissaries of the Valar. I'm just as much an emissary as you stuck-up fools. And that Gandalf is a mean one. The elves keep blabbing about Baron and Luthien, but who weeps for Barbie and Ken? I suppose since Barbie was an Easterling and Ken an orc, they're too other for their doomed love to really count. Especially since it was Gandalf who put an end to it by turning them into dolls and merchandising them. The orcs still shudder and the Easterlings weep. Besides, Gandalf gets into some sicko stuff. Yeah, to use the appropriate Old Elvish root. At least Saruman is educable. Okay, October 4th. The war is going well. Reinforcements have come from Toreador and Cuspidor. I can't help thinking it rather unfair, though, for the Magic Kingdom to use talking woodland animals who sing, "Whistle while you slay" while charging into battle. Or at least that's what my commanders are telling me. With the Leech King, I keep getting confused. Witch King or Leech King? It's harder to get reliable reports. This reminds me of when, for a practical joke, I afflicted Gondor with a plague of white plastic beagles with black spots, emblazoned with the slogan, "Get Mordor, it pays." 500 or 600 years ago, I think. What a lark. October 5th. How lovely the scenery in Shelob's Valley. How the babbling brook there doth enchant me, and how the mountains uplift my heart. When I'm there, I want to sing a bel canto baritone aria. Shelob. Oh. She really lights my fire. She almost makes me forget Minuel, the most underrated mouse vamp of the First and Second Ages. This Tanga horde I just unleashed on Gondor should be particularly effective. Sometimes I think the orcs get a little too into it, but nay, let the lads have their fun. My educational reforms are going quite well. Clarence plays the violin beautifully for an orc. I'm not wholly sure I was right when I wrote, "Being wafts like Elbereth's perfume. Does it not rather sizzle like Mount Viagra's flames?" Speaking of which, Shelob is waiting. A second, I need to drink water before this one. October 6th. I am composing an ode to Shelob. Shelob, lovely Spider-Woman, daughter of Elysium, I betreadeth fire drunk and steamy, whence thy halidom, thy enchantments make me woga, all abode in darkest night. Sorry, I went flat there. Every mensch becomes a rogue aware, ere thy soft wings alight. The NASDAQ have issued a summons. I hope Baggins makes it in time. The Eagle service has gone downhill since the halcyon days of the Second Age, when I made the Eagles run on time. On the other hand, they tell me that fiscal matters have vastly improved under the guidance of Greenspawn, wisest of Valarautor. Pardon me. All right, better quickly check the. Actually, no, let me see how much more there. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. October 12th. To show my gratitude to the NASDAQ, that was rather annoying continually getting "the page cannot be displayed" messages on my Palantir, I'm granting them a long vacation. Their itinerary will begin at Minas Vegas, minus wages, the malcontents call it, and thence to the topless beaches of the southern kingdom of Rio, where they will get some much-needed morale. The next leg will bring them to the Easterling realm of harem, exotic in its decadence. When they come back in a few months, I should have my new transport ready. I just haven't decided what it should be. Pterodactyls? Jet-propelled ATVs? It is an ATV anyway. Yeah. Giant vampire bats? Skateboards? Balrogs? Helium balloons? Or maybe I should just borrow Gondor's monorail. Decisions, decisions, decisions. I think I'm feeling generous because of Shelob's hot embraces. To think that just a month ago I was groping Galadriel, she kept playing the, quote, virtuous wife, end quote, to the hilt. Although if one thing's so painfully obvious, even a stoned troll would realize it, it was that Galadriel didn't marry Dolborn for the sex. With due respect, I don't think even Melkor, back in the palmy days when he used to hang out in Tilde Eressëa, ever had such hot love affairs as mine. Not even when he was begetting the Valaraukar with Gugoliond. Not when he and Joanna begat the Valkyrias, the renowned fat women with horns. When Ollie found out he was Woodrolf and had them all turned into stone. When I was in Valinor to sue Ollie for breach of contract, I saw them at the Valinorian Museum of Natural History. Conditions in Mordor are excellent at the moment. I did well in appointing Greenspan to be the mouth of Sauron. October 18th. Where in Utumno is Baggins? Court Orc's Carmina Lugburzana has proved stunningly successful. What annoys me is the consistency with which Melkor's greatness as a thinker is underrated. The Philosophics of Evil, trajectory of Thangarodrisms should be required reading for every philosophy department, even if it somewhat de-emphasizes the transgressiveness of other-oriented Quenyos. October 19th. Editor's note. This entry regarding Sauron's relations with Shelob is far too explicit to print here. Although not in any way subscribing to Victorian notions of prudery, and indeed lauding the collapse of Puritanism in an uproar of extreme license, the editor nevertheless believes that the explicitness of this entry renders it inappropriate for publishing in this venue. He apologizes for the inconvenience. Okay, how are you doing over there? Everything all right? Ready for a bit more, or should I stop here? Let me have a look and see how much. Let's see. Okay, the next page is relatively short anyway, so we'll do that page anyway. Okay, November 2nd, 3018. I wonder if those robot things, ants or whatever they're called, could be persuaded to join our cause. Speaking of robots, I only wish I'd had a better grasp of the technology used by the Baritone Lion back when I was making the trolls. The way they malfunction during the day is extremely inconvenient. Who knew that kryptonite would do that? Fortunately, my scientists say they're close to finding a solution. I wouldn't trust Saruman even if my counselor, Deanna Schroll, hadn't told me that he was hiding something. Editor's note. A fragment from an undated entry which must, on internal evidence, date from this time. The war is still going pretty well. Spooky slew Mortian Ferde and liberated several of Gondor's heraldic squidshop employees. I have sent him a gift of chocolate liqueur as a reward. It has always somewhat troubled me that my political career should have been so much more successful than my academic career, even if, or because, I regard my political career as the extension, or rather the actualization, of my academic career. The forging of the ring was the actualization of the potentia, the energisma of the dynamis, so to speak, included in my dissertation on the Balerioffs of metabeing. A large part of the problem was that Aule, back when he was a foreman, we used to pun his name in Quenya and call him, what is he, and call him Ollie Foreman or Ollie North. That's probably obscure. That's probably pretty obscure by now. That's 1980s politics. That's so probably pretty obscure. Anyway, never learned how to spell very well. But another difficulty was that my interest in theory sometimes prevented me from grasping the literal meaning of a word. Thus, when I read the sign on Ollie's door, mining and metallurgy, I not unnaturally took mining to mean mining, the appropriation of the other, making it mine, and metallurgy, sick, as referring to the lurgy about lurgy or some new and particularly advanced form of theory. This misunderstanding has dogged my academic career ever since, even when I published my brilliant exposition of Melkor's standardistic critique of the Manway's bombadilology. I find myself enjoying Deanna Troll's company almost too much lately, to the extent that I wonder whether my fidelity to Shelob is being tested. I've never had such a steamy, hot, lustful affair in my life as that with Shelob. Well, possibly Luthien and Miniwethel, and I strongly believe in being faithful for at least 2 months. I don't want to end up like Sartre. Editor's note. Clearly this portion of the diary has suffered severe damage, presumably at the hands of Gondorian rewriters of history. November 17th. I visited the liberated sweatshop today. It's really a proud moment to see all those once oppressed people laughing and weeping for joy as they tossed effigies of Isildur and Anarchion into the bonfire. Warmed my heart. I haven't felt so pleased since Melkor beat up Aule. Aule and I had problems from the beginning. Although Aule was clearly very intelligent, he did make the dwarves after all, though he rather messed up with the females. His manners were rather crude and coarse, and his lectures somewhat difficult to follow, as he would mutter them sotto voce while hopping on one foot and gaping at explicit photos of Yavanna, the vamp of Volinor. I spent most of my time studying Thangorodrix with Melkor. He appreciated my theoretical approach much better than the almost mindlessly pragmatist Ollie. I stuck with Ollie anyway, in the hopes that I might worm Yavanna away from the slob. Speaking of worming, it's a good thing I sent Deanna out to spy for more reasons than one. According to her report, the company at Rivendell are spending an unconscionably long time goofing off. I know the bordelli at Rivendell are pretty fine, but let's get a move on, people. Let's see. I think there's just... Okay. Okay, while I'm waiting for a reply, I might as well carry on anyway. What the? What? What are you talking about? What? Oh, wrong tab, sorry. What? What the blazes? All right, that tab seems to have disappeared for some reason. Okay, just a few more entries. Sorry about that. I put the question of genetic, November 23rd. I put the question of genetic mutation to the Balrog Assembly, but the prognostics are not good. The right-wing Balrogs object to my proposal because it's too high-tech. The left-wing Balrogs because it's exploitative. We don't have exploitation in Mordor, I try to explain, but to no avail. The silver lining is that the few surviving wingless Balrogs have taken an enthusiastic interest in jet propulsion. I'm concerned about othering, possibly even deselfing, the Balrogs. I think Melkor is giving me the strength to resist Diana Troll. After all, she doesn't have webs like Shelob's, which add a lot to the erotic experience. Well, my request to have Melkor and Yavanna as my readers was denied. Instead, I got Nienna and Tolkas, as well as Ally, who I knew I was stuck with. Nienna was okay, although a little too existentialist. That was more up Sartre's alley. But Tolkas? What kind of an insult was that? I had to dumb down my topic from metallurgical mining, the undisappropriation of Eas, to smart miners' foolish choices. That was the beginning of the end. November 18th. Oops, I seem to have skipped. I've been thinking of carrying out genetic improvements on Balrogs that would render them more efficient. Something along the lines of jet propulsion. Horses are a bit passé, no? Why shouldn't my Nozak have the best? There are, however, two problems. The first is getting the right-wing Balrogs to agree with the left-wing Balrogs. The second is that my other attempts at genetic reengineering weren't entirely successful. Neither the wingless Balrogs nor the fat, jolly Balrogs in red suits were an unmixed success. Of course, neither of them had pink fluffy flippers. That could make all the difference. We're reorganizing the liberated sweatshop as a workers' cooperative. I need to find out more about Huey, Dewey, and Louie's role in all this. What we've uncovered about Gondorian sweatshop practices and their links to organized crime is just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure. The really annoying thing about Aule was that he expected me to do actual mining. Please. Please. I'm a doctoral candidate, not a wage slave, I valiantly tried to explain. And then, when it became time to write the proposal, I was amazed they wouldn't let Melkor on the committee. I thought he would have provided a fresh, new perspective, but no! They didn't care for independent thought in Valinor. Time for my woga with Shelob. I've got to stop having these Diana Troll fantasies. November 28th. In only about a week, I'll have been faithful to Shelob for 2 months. It was hot. The webs are cool. But number one, her jealous fits are getting a bit annoying. Number two, she failed to explain how those pink fluffy slippers got into the lair. And three, Diana Troll tells me she's hiding something. Well, I've managed to win over the right-wing Balrogs by promising to ban Sartre's Balrogging and nothingness. I've allowed it up to now. He was my brother after all, but I've often wondered why that thesis was accepted when my brilliant exposition of smart miners' foolish choices was rejected. I took that idiotic topic and critiqued it with a brilliance worthy of Eldari, only more so. But my committee were too darn hidebound, pretending not to know what I meant by the interstices of the subject may be more, if not significant, at least more Thunderwaldric than the subject itself, viewed interjectionally. Even Tolkien should have been able to grasp that. Of course, the fact that I've been caught in flagrante with Yavanna didn't help. It was worth it. I'd never done it before except for the occasional play my Balrogette, and that didn't really count. And that's about enough of that for now. So I think because I have to run off and get ready for solo. So hopefully this was mildly amusing and not a total flop. Hopefully someone is still awake in there. At least it worked technically though, so that's good. So not a complete failure anyway. So that's it for now. More, possibly more later, depending. Well, probably more later, depending on. Okay, so have a riot, you lot. If anyone's still in there, have a riot.